A lot of times inventors will look at the cost of the patenting process, which there are fees involved to the patent office. There are fees involved if you hire patent attorneys or patent agents for preparation. But if you're looking at your overall, you've done the market research and you see you have let's say a multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar potential market for your product or your invention, then you back in that and say, okay, well, what's the value of doing this the right way?
Welcome to Invention Stories on YouTube. My name is Robert Baer, and thank you for joining us today. You're watching episode 52 of the Invention Stories podcast, our interview with Tariq Najee-ullah, the Patent Insider, which has been previously recorded and shared as an audio-only podcast on May 10th, 2018. Tariq graduated cum laude from Morehouse College with a Bachelor of Science degree in Mathematics and Engineering, and earned his master's degree from Georgetown University in International Relations and Affairs. He volunteers as an imam and an assistant imam at Masjid Mohammed and is currently an interfaith consultant at DZ Muslimman. Tariq has spent 10 years at the USPTO as a patent examiner and is currently the principal at Gibraltar Consulting LLC, as well as the patent agent at Founders Legal. We have Tariq on the line from Atlanta, Georgia, so let's get started. Welcome, Tariq, to the Invention Stories podcast. I'd like to just jump right in and ask you, what kind of kid were you? Did you have like an engineering mindset? Were you competitive? What kind of kid were you?
As a kid, I was a curious kid. I like to read a lot. I love comic books. I'm loving the movies right now, all the Marvel movies and DC movies that are being made. I can't wait for the Avengers, especially after Black Panther. I read comic books. My parents were Trekkies, so I was into sci-fi. But one of the things that really stuck out to me, I had my uncle Charles, he worked as an engineer, and he worked at Ford Aerospace, and we visited him, and they were working on a Hubble Space Telescope, and that had a profound impact on me. I was, 6th or 7th grade, and I was like, that's it. I want to be an engineer. And so from that time on, I just kind of focused on math and science and really trying to delve into understanding engineering.
For some people, they seem to be sort of born with the ability to grasp mathematics, while other people struggle. And I'm sure you worked hard, but did math come naturally to you?
I think probably by genetics, I got it. Some of that. I had a math mind. My mother was a math professor at Georgia State University, so sometimes I'd end up with her on her weekends when she had special classes or seminars, and I'd be sitting in her math classes, and I'd, be taking things in. But math came, pretty easy to me until it got abstract. Then it became a little more difficult.
I see you attended Morehouse College and earning Bachelor of Science degrees in Mathematics and Engineering, graduating cum laude. You are obviously on the honor roll, the Dean's List, and the Golden Key National Honor Society, and those are 3 groups I've never been invited to be on, and must make your parents so proud to have their son do so well. What's it like to achieve and to be recognized as one of the very best?
I don't think about it like that. I wasn't necessarily trying to earn any of those things, just trying to fulfill my potential. And I think that I consider myself a driven person, especially for things that I'm passionate about. And, those things happen along the way, but that's really, very curious person and I always seek to understand. I'm sure my first words were like, why?
And it looks like right after that, you went to Georgia Institute of Technology, where you earned a Bachelor of Science degree in Electrical and Electronics Engineering, again, graduating cum laude. Why did you decide to earn an additional Bachelor of Science degree?
So this is a unique program for Morehouse College and the other colleges in the Atlanta University Center, which is a consortium of colleges and universities in Atlanta. And they have a program called a dual degree engineering program, where they have partnerships with four-year schools, engineering institutes like Rochester Polytechnic Institute, Columbia University, Georgia Tech, and a couple of other schools I'm thinking of right now. But they have a program where basically in 5 to 6 years, you can get 2 bachelor's degrees. And so you have a focus in your home school. My home school was Morehouse College. My focus was mathematics. But you could choose a number of sciences. And then you would have I guess, the sister school that you would do engineering at, you would focus on, you would tailor your prerequisites at your home school to allow you to transition into the engineering institution. So I was kind of sold on that in the door. I could get the liberal arts, historically black college and university experience of Morehouse College, but also really get excellent engineering experience from Georgia Tech. And so it was a very good program. It's challenging, though. I didn't realize that meant that I finished college basically at Morehouse in 3.5 years, and then I finished Georgia Tech in 2.5 years. But basically, everything that everybody does in 4 years, you load up. So had I known that, maybe I would have done a different approach. But it was very rewarding, a very rich experience. And that's the program that they have. And at the time, I believe it's still going on. But that was, there are a number of students that also chose that path.
Well, it sounds like a good path. Certainly sounds challenging, but obviously you were up to it. While you were attending college, you were also an intern at NASA. Did they seek you out? By the date, it looks like you did it in the summertime. Maybe class was out. Was it the thrill of a lifetime? Was it an eye-opener, a disappointment? It seems like the dream of a lot of little kids would be to work there. How was your experience?
I mean, it was great. That was actually part of, there was a program for minorities in STEM that NASA hosted, so they would give scholarships to college students who qualified, incoming freshmen, and so that was I got a scholarship from NASA, an achievement scholarship to attend college, and as part of that scholarship, you have to work internships, and so I got to work at 2 different NASA centers, NASA Ames Research Center in Moffett Field, California, right near Silicon Valley. And that was an awesome experience. They had like the world's largest wind tunnel. And so that was an opportunity to really, see a lot about aviation, learn about flight hardware. And I worked as an engineer, basically. I was a draftsman. I worked with a team of engineers and did CAD work. And then, my next 3 summers, I worked at NASA Jet Propulsion Lab or JPL in Pasadena, California. And, I got to work on a rover project, a deep space interferometer project. And I got to do some testing of some flight hardware and just learn the different aspects of engineering work. And it was great. It's a great experience. I think everybody should have the opportunity to work at NASA. I mean, the things that the scientists think about, the engineering mind, what they're seeking to find out in research, you don't get that anywhere else. And actually at NASA JPL is where I was introduced to patent law for the first time. There was an engineer there who had worked for Hughes and a lot of different aerospace companies. And he had gone to, he was actually a graduate of Morehouse College. And Paul Ware was his name, but he worked at JPL. He was a patent attorney. And so he introduced me to patent law. And I never knew it at the time, but that really had an impact on me and kind of led me up down that path.
And I'm just looking at your LinkedIn profile here, and it looks like there's a little bit of a gap between your finishing college and working at the USPTO, that's the United States Patent and Trademark Office. And so how was the transition? How did you wind up working at the USPTO?
So I did some study abroad and came back from study abroad and worked in the nonprofit sector for a couple of years. But I always had the desire to really get back into engineering and really continue pursuing that path. And so I moved to Maryland, near the D.C. area in Silver Spring, and got married and started working at the patent office. And at that time, the patent office brought in examiners with an engineering background. They're looking for examiners. And I had that background. And, I saw it as a very interesting way to learn a lot about various types of technology, while also, I would say, having a quasi-legal position. I mean, as an examiner, you're really a couple of steps away from the Supreme Court. You can make a decision with an office action or a patent application, and that can be reviewed by a board or panel. And then that decision can be reviewed by the federal court circuit. After that, you're one step removed from the Supreme Court. So it was an exciting opportunity for me. And so I started that back in 2007 and just had a wonderful experience as a patent examiner. I learned a lot about various types of technology. And I mean, it's just a tremendous experience. At that time, we had I think it was a 12-week training program, maybe longer, but I believe a 12 to 16-week training program where it was a mix of, I guess, kind of classroom sessions, learning patent law, in different labs where you learn different aspects of the examining process and the patenting process. And then, we were grouped, and then we had, actual patents that were examined, and we would work in groups and then individually and be reviewed. And it gave you a lot of time to kind of learn the law, but also practical experience to apply it. And so I adapted to it really quickly and began to learn the process and different phases of examining. And it's been a wealth of experience that I really value, especially in my work today.
Our listeners are made up of inventors, and you being the first that we've interviewed from the USPTO, I'd like to take this opportunity to ask you a little bit about the process. And say, I developed a new invention for eyeglasses, and I write up my patent application and send it to the USPTO. How does it work on your end? You receive it, what happens?
So, interesting. I probably just have a little more insight into this question, especially now working directly with inventors, innovators as a patent agent. So I see it, the full process as opposed to just being on the receiving end at the office. What happens is when you file a patent application, you submit it electronically or via fax or mail to the United States Patent and Trademark Office. It goes to a receiving office, and they basically check boxes to make sure that you've complied with the requirements to receive an official filing date of receipt, and if not, if you have some missing parts, they send you something. But once you go through that process and everything is confirmed, then your application is sorted or classified to a specific technology region. And then there are a number of technology centers within the patent office. And for instance, I was in a technology center 2100 for networking, computer networking. Then I was in a technology center 2400, which dealt with the two art units, which is your scientific or technology area within the technology center. I worked in an art unit dedicated to computer networking and cryptography. And there are other, different units, but that was my primary focus for most of my 10 years was computer networking and then computer networking and cryptography. So all of the applications that we got were mostly, I would say, primarily part of this scientific technology area. Sometimes it'll be tangentially part of the area, but it's enough of the components that you still have to examine it. So if you do eyeglasses, then you would go to, your application would be docketed or classified in an area or technology art unit that works on eyewear or optical type of equipment. And then that would be assigned to an examiner or docketed to an examiner in that art unit. And that examiner would be the one responsible for examining your application to determine whether or not what you have submitted is a novel invention or whether or not it has some issues, meaning that there's other art or prior art or technical inventions that have been disclosed that are similar to get it to a point where it is patentable. I know that's a lot, but was that clear?
I think so, but just to make certain, you were mostly focused on the software side or software specifically?
Well, that was a large part of the hundreds of applications that I examined. But I mean, the technology was much of a broader range. I would say that examiners are subject matter experts, but also process experts. We understand a process of taking an application to a patent, what makes something patentable, what doesn't. And that's the focus of the examiner. So over time, you become a subject matter expert, but you can also, you can be in a different subject area. Meaning, as long as you understand the law and the process and you're able to do the engineering aspects, and you can understand technology. That's why you have to be an engineer. So that's one of the major things that the examining process, an inventor needs to understand that the examiner is not the enemy. The examiner is really trying to help you get something that is valuable and patentable. And we do that or examiners do that by searching what's out there. And think of it like it being a master Google search. Of course, more focused and more directed, but focused on what you claim to have invented. And then we compare that to what's out there. And then once we find what's out there, the application is then, we'll say, well, look, we found these two, let's say you invented eyeglasses. Let's say, we found another guy who invented eyeglasses 20 years before you. What's different about your eyeglasses compared to what inventor A or inventor Smith invented? And we primarily have two ways that we look at that, whether that's an exact, basically almost one-to-one match, which is under a legal statute called, under the 35 United States Code, Section 102. That'd be an exact one-to-one match between what you have claimed in your patent application against what is available or what we found with another inventor, let's say inventor Smith. And then there's another way we say, well, what you've invented, these eyeglasses, I haven't found the exact match, but what I found is a portion of your invention with inventor Smith. And then this, that's the frames, but then the way you have your glasses, or the material that you have for your lenses, I found in inventor Jones's patent. So I'd say Smith in combination with Jones is an obvious combination of what's already in existence. So you'd have to, I guess, clarify over what I'm showing you in Smith and Jones, and that type of the statute for that analysis is the 35 United States Code, Section 103. And so these are two primary tools that examiners have to help you refine your invention and clarify it so that when you do get a patent, if we get that to that point, then you have something that's actually valuable and not infringing on something that's already in existence.
Yeah, and that's good that you mentioned that, because there could be a small component or part of the invention that when you send it back and say somebody else does this, well, let me ask a better question. Why do most patent applications fail or get sent back?
So I actually have two parts to this answer. One of them is based on my examining experience, and the other would be based on my experience working on the other side, working with inventors. And I see it's not just one answer, I say, but I say two primary aspects. The first aspect, as an examiner, we definitely have to understand what the examiner's viewpoint and what the examiner's position and role is in the patenting process. A lot of times inventors think the examiner is the enemy or the one out to get their patent or prevent them from getting a patent. But that's not the role of a patent examiner. A patent examiner's role is to make sure that you have contributed something novel, new, or useful to society in terms of the invention, and that you've done that in a manner that's clear, concise, so that anybody who sees the patent application that's been, you're going to be awarded as a patent, they have to be able to look at that and then reproduce it, because what you're doing is an exchange for you disclosing your idea to the public. In exchange for that, you get a limited monopoly. And so the role of the examiner is to ensure that you're not getting something that is fraudulent or non-functioning, something that basically patently ineligible. It doesn't work. You have a lot of information, but it's not clear based on the information you submitted that you've actually invented anything useful or new. And so the whole role of the examiner boils down to helping you clarify if in the application that you submitted, at the time that you submitted it, that you possess the invention and that you have described it in a manner that's useful, concise, and also clarifies how someone of what's the term is of ordinary skill in the art, meaning someone who has someone technically astute in the same area of science or technology that you're in, that someone can pick it up and read it, a peer or colleague in the field, and they'd be able to reproduce it or understand your invention. And so the goal of the examiner, the role is to clarify things. I think because, there's a certain process, though, a legal process. And I think, the big hurdle I see for inventors is especially inventors that try to do it alone, want to save a couple of bucks here and there, is not being familiar with the process and then putting themselves in an area where they've actually have disclosed some of their invention, but not in the proper way. And they've made some mistakes that hurt them going forward, where they're not really able to get protection for their idea, and they kind of botched the process. And that's not an examiner problem. It's more so just an awareness of the process problem. And that's really why agents and patent agents and patent attorneys exist, to help through the process. There are some other ways to get around that if you don't want to go through that process that I'm familiar with. I can talk about those later. But the second thing, I think, as on this side, in talking to inventors and interviewing inventors and going through the process, is not understanding how to look at intellectual property. Intellectual property is not your full business model. It should be an aspect of your business model. But if you are not just benevolently giving your idea or your innovation or your invention to the public, just out of the goodness of your heart, just to have it, you actually are seeking to have some type of intellectual property protection to protect your rights and to go into business, to be the next Edison or something like that, then you have to look at this patent process as an investment and part of your business model. But it shouldn't be the end-all be-all. It should be an aspect of it. And so I think a lot of times inventors will look at the cost of the patenting process, which there are fees involved to the patent office. There are fees involved if you hire patent attorneys or patent agents for preparation. But if you're looking at your overall, you've done the market research and you see you have let's say a multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar potential market for your product or your invention, then you back in that and say, okay, well, what's the value of doing this the right way? So I think sometimes inventors get started with the process and aren't familiar with the process and get burned in the process, or, sell their rights to their invention off for next to nothing because they're frustrated with the process. And I think it's really just a point of trying to be more familiar, get more educated about the process so you can go in with the right information. If you're armed with the right information, I think you can make the best decisions. And I think a lot of times inventors aren't always armed with the right information because that's not their focus. Their focus is on the widget, the thing, and making the improvement. And that's where the excitement is. This is actually not the fun part, all the time for an inventor to deal with the patent office or talk to an attorney, talk to a patent agent. And, the fun part is the innovation. And so those would be in general, the two aspects I think that are challenges. And there you go, and we can get into the weeds of that, but it's like more of an overview of the two biggest challenges that I see.
I can only speak for myself. Doing paperwork isn't my favorite thing. Sometimes I imagine when you receive an application from a big company like Apple who's constantly sending you them, and maybe they are thicker than like somebody who's doing it for the first time and maybe not sure what they're doing or trying to take shortcuts. Can you tell right away from a quick read if an inventor gets it or just doesn't, or gets most of it and really try and fall short in the details by not describing it well enough? How is it like for you?
I think, you can kind of tell pretty much off the bat. You can't tell, I can't say off the bat, well, this is not patentable. We have to do the process. But you can tell off the bat the quality of the patent application. And that's a big issue with, when you're doing this patent application, it's like creating, I try to kind of associate it to something that people are familiar with in real estate. So if you're trying to buy a house and you say, you can't just say, I want to buy this house on the street. It has an address, and that address has land boundaries, and it's on record with the state or the county. When you have an idea, you have an invention, you have to create that address. You have to create those boundaries. And that's what your patent application does. And so a lot of times, if you have a pro se inventor or inventor doing it themselves, sometimes they'll use a program. Sometimes I think this is a good approach. Like I know I'm familiar with Stephen Key of Invent Right, and I work, a member of the Inventors Association of the capital area here in Washington, D.C. area. And, for certain inventions, you're really looking at something that's an innovation and you want to get it to market. So I think the best thing in that situation may not be to upfront do all the patent processes. Just a quick provisional, go with that program and get your thing to the market. You want to do an ad scene for TV or something like that. That may be work for some products. For others, you have a true invention in technology. You have an iPhone or an iPad, or you're inventing blockchain technology to do something that hasn't been done before in terms of technology. So, new type of software or new chemical process, new material, and you need to protect that. And so I think in that sense, it always helps to have professionals to do it. But to answer your question, yes, you can tell once you get experienced whether or not someone has done their homework in terms of what the patent application is. And there's some very key reasons why I highly recommend a professional, just having dealt with the hundreds of applications that I've dealt with over the 10 years, 11 years.
Yeah, I figured you would, but I thought I'd ask. I see you are the founder and CEO of Charm City Apps, LLC. So what is Charm City Apps?
Well, yes, as this was, while I was working in the patent office, you see technology, and as an examiner, you're not, allowed to patent anything. Even for I don't think I'll be able to patent anything myself. I think it's a year or two after I left the office, so I have some time before that's even possible. But being around technology, and innovation, I had the urge to get into the app space and just so I learned about apps. I began developing apps, and just simple apps. At first, emojis and games and things like that. Just trying to. I think the one app I still have is still out there. It's called Coexist Emojis. It's an interfaith emoji app. But what I was trying to do is just try to learn how to use this mobile app technology in a way, and just having fun with it. And so in that process, I was an entrepreneur, and I was inventing things with technology. It also gave me, when I went to work at the office, gave me insight to some of the challenges that inventors are facing and the type of decisions you have to make when you're innovating, and how it's an imperfect process. You're going to constantly be trying to iterate things. And that's given me a very special appreciation for the patent process, which is also something that influenced my desire to leave the office to be a resource for inventors and innovators, startups, those that are really looking for help. You want to have someone that kind of is able to understand the process. I built myself as a patent insider. That's my brand, and I'll have that's actually my brand, my Twitter handle, website, everything. And what I do through that as a patent insider is really try to increase education around the patent process. Try to help examiners, and also really more so than helping examiners, help inventors understand what they need to do and how to navigate the process, because it's a process. And if you don't have the proper information for the process, then you can really hurt yourself and put yourself in a bind.
And you definitely are a patent insider. So before we get into what you're doing today, I'd like to ask you a little bit about your volunteering experience.
Okay.
You were a religious leader, an imam and an assistant imam at the Masjid Mohammed from 2007 to 2011, and since 2014, an interfaith consultant at the DC Muslim Man. I'd like to ask you about your experience, including what was the inspiration and why is volunteering important to you?
So one of the things that's, I guess, part of me, I'm born Muslim. Parents were, converted to Islam in college. And so being a part of my faith community has always been important. And when I studied abroad and did some religious studies. But, the unique part about my experience is that, I've always been, had an interfaith family, meaning that, my relationships with my family members, my grandparents, my aunts and uncles, cousins, everything. There are a multitude of faiths. There's Christians, Buddhists, and, my parents are Muslims. So I always had an interesting dinner conversation around Christmas and Thanksgiving. The hot button issues of religion and politics you stay away from. We ended up always having discussions. So I thought that was pretty normal. But at the end of the day, I studied abroad, did some religious studies, got to visit the holy sites in Damascus and I also do some traveling to Islamic holy sites. And when I came back from that experience, I wanted to make sure that I balanced whatever I was doing professionally, that I was still, a part of my religious community. And so in that sense, I was a religious leader and imam that helped with religious education. And at the same time, a big thing I try to do, and I still do, I do it in Baltimore right now, is try to be a part of the interfaith conversation. I believe people need to have challenges when we don't know each other, when we don't talk to each other, when we other one another. And so I just try to be, a positive influence and work in the community in terms of education and bringing people together. And that's a passion of mine, so I'll continue to do that. In fact, I'll be going to a conference in April in Rome, Italy, it's a Muslims and Folklore conference, and hopefully I'll be sharing some of my graduate school research there on the interfaith aspect. So that's a passion of mine. That's something that I think also helps me as a patent insider. I look at my job as to help people. And, I'm not looking, try to understand people's background, what they're passionate about, what they're trying to do, and then look at how can I help them achieve their goal. I try to give, honest feedback, about, is it good for them to get a patent? Is it not good to get a patent? Is it something they should, and I think I've learned those skills of, dealing with challenging situations and dealing with all kinds of people from my volunteer experience. So it's something I think is it's important to me. And I know that I've noticed that many of those who have achieved in many areas, they tend to be passionate about volunteering and helping others. And so I do that through my faith community, as others do as well. And that's something that, I value. So I also try to make sure that, I hope that comes across in how I treat people. And they're not just clients, but they're people and they're inventors. They have goals and dreams. So I really try to bring that into what I do.
Right on. And before we discuss what you're doing today, I wanted to ask, why did you decide to leave the USPTO?
So the USPTO that I started in was very different than the USPTO that I left. As everyone is familiar with, or if they follow patent law, during the Obama administration, there was a new patent act, the American Invention Act, that changed the way that patents were done. The USPTO, the United States Patent Office, changed from being a first to invent agency to a first to file, like most of the other patent agencies throughout the globe, the global agencies. So what that meant is that now it changed the process of examining as well. It changed the process of how we determine whether or not something is new or novel. It changed how we determine prior art. So there are a lot of changes. And while I enjoyed the process and enjoyed learning, both aspects, I also saw opportunity. My goal was never really to stay at the patent office long term. My goal, from when I saw my uncle as an engineer at Ford Aerospace, was always to learn engineering in some aspect and become a proficient expert or specialist in it, and then open my own, go out on my own. So that's always been a goal. And I think, with the changes with the AIA, I did my best to really try to master those changes. And then also there were some other things resulting from that, like the Patent Trademarks Appeal Board and the Patent Quality Initiative. These two things were instituted as a result of the AIA, or maybe not as much the Quality Initiative, but the way that things were changing at the office and understanding intimately how that worked, I saw an opportunity that right now, that'd be really marketable if I went out on my own and tried to bring this expertise and bridge a gap. Most people that do leave the patent office don't stay as long as I've stayed. They leave earlier in their tenure, so they don't have the type of extended experience and relationships there. And again, the relationship only is helpful as how to, your comfort in relating to people. I don't think it gives me anything extra in terms of, I'll give you a patent because I know you. That doesn't really, there's no good old boy network at the patent office. But I think in terms of understanding, I can go sit in front of an examiner. I have no problem. I understand their perspective. I understand the manager's perspective, the SPE or supervisory patent examiner. I understand the process of how things are reviewed, the quality initiatives. I understand the quality assurance specialists. I know their role. I know how to speak that language.
And I totally see the value of having someone who previously worked for the USPTO being involved in the writing of a patent. I would absolutely place a high value on that experience. Let me ask what you're doing these days. Now, you're the principal at Gibraltar Consulting, LLC?
Yes.
And you're a patent agent at Founders Legal, is that correct?
Yeah, Founders Legal. So basically, when I left the office, I started Gibraltar Consulting, which was just, me being a patent consultant and then later passing the patent bar exam and becoming a patent agent. And so as a patent consultant, consulting with inventors as well as attorneys, patent attorneys, trying to help them navigate different issues with the patent office, whether that was dealing with office actions, making responses to, rejections by the patent office, interviewing with examiners, assisting. And so what happened in that, I developed a relationship with Founders Legal, and Founders Legal is my new team. So we basically have a partnership where, and Founders Legal it's a group of actually patent attorneys and corporate attorneys that actually have the same approach. This is a real natural fit for me. The same approach to everyone there has been an entrepreneur or is an entrepreneur and has worked in business and understands the challenges of being in business and having innovation. And so at Founders Legal, we work out of the Atlanta Tech Village in downtown Atlanta. And it's really an awesome space where there are a lot of startups, a lot of inventors, innovators, a lot of excitement around innovation. And we're the only, law firm there. But it's a boutique firm. But what we do is we try to bring that understanding and that edge of knowing what it's like to be a founder, a company, a co-founder, or an innovator in a technology space, and bring that to help the inventor. And so Founders Legal has been a very good experience and a very good partnership. And what we do there, the founding partners, Yuri Eliezer and Jeff Becquieres. Jeff is in corporate law, and he has tremendous experience with SEC regulation and business. And what he does, he really brings that value to inventors. So we have these ICOs and cryptocurrencies. He's able to help make them compliant with the SEC. What patent attorney Yuri Eliezer, what his background, he's worked at, I don't want to mention the name, but a really big firm and worked with large companies like Microsoft and others. So he has a really thorough understanding of software patents and advanced technologies. And he's also advised on many large clients dealing with advanced technology and innovation. He's also, had his own software companies. So I think, we have a unique mix. We have someone that's worked in big pharma and his pharmaceutical background. We have those in software and technology. We have those in business and corporate law. And we have a really, really special team and we try to stay lean as well. We also, as part of our process, we try to, we've innovated a way with software, our own internal software to kind of reduce the cost to client. So, it's a very innovative look at patent law and law in general. And so that allows us to reduce our overhead, and we transfer that cost savings to our clients. And in doing so, it allows us to be lean and efficient. And I really think it's just a unique place. I mean, I felt like I was from day one a kindred spirit, and I really enjoyed their approach. And I've been very happy to add my own patent insider approach to help us with clients and to help inventors and innovators turn their dreams into a reality. And, we've granted some patents together. So it's an awesome experience. And I'm loving the space of Founders. So if anybody's interested in finding out more about Founders, our website is founderslegal.com. And that tells you kind of all about what we do, everything from blockchain to biotech, software, corporate law, investment, raising capital. All these types of things are, in our wheelhouse.
That sounds awesome that you've found kindred spirits to work with. And if I wanted to patent something, I believe I'd want to hire someone who's been on the other side, that knows what they're looking for. I mean, the goal is to get the strongest patent in the shortest amount of time, do it right the first time. So if you're listening out there, and you know who to contact. So now that's the Founders Legal. How about Gibraltar Consulting? Is that what you do on your own?
So yeah, Gibraltar Consulting is my company and what, primarily right now I work with founders, but what that company it's I guess I'll say it's umbrella consulting, and we help support law firms in terms of with patent insider experience in providing patent-related support, but also it allows me to deal with the other aspects like the interfaith consulting, other business opportunities, and, fall under that umbrella. But I work with Founders Legal, and then outside of that, I'm building my brand as a patent insider, the patent insider, and really trying to increase my exposure in terms of just not in the sense of exposure. I want to help people. And I think a lot of times it's easy to go from, I have this great idea to, this guy wants to charge me all this money in billable hours to help me. It doesn't sound like help. It sounds like hurt. So what I want to do is give as much information as possible to help inventors through the process, truly. And I encourage you to reach out to me, schedule a free consultation with me. And it's not, whether or not you choose to work with me, it's fine. I want to, I make myself available as a resource for inventors who are looking for help and who want to know really about the process. And I've had the opportunity to work with different incubators, like the one Atlanta Founders Institute, and others. We really work with inventors that go through programs to try to give them an extra boost and give them support. So that's mainly, I would say, if you have a server and you have the front end, the back end would be Gibraltar Consulting. That's, me and my personal internal team. I like to use former examiners to try to help with many projects, whether it's searching or things like that. But for the most part, I'm part of Founders Legal's team, and this is what we do. We work to help inventors and innovators, turn their ideas into reality. And we have a talented team of very just cutting edge technology that we use to kind of help us with the process and make things more efficient for our clients. But, I don't look at it as just like a client relationship. We partner together. We become partners in business through this process. You're trying to help an inventor get their idea to reality. And we want to be a solid pillar in that process for them. And then we're building relationships, friendships. I mean, hopefully, I've seen inventors come in with one idea and that turns into a multi-million-dollar patent portfolio, a number of patents that they're trying to get to secure their technology. So it's an exciting process. And I really want, if anybody gets anything, one thing from this, know that a patent application is not your business plan, but it should be a component. Just like I talked about how you're turning a thought into something that is tangible, and not just in terms of a product, but you have to make sure that it's legally protected. And so just like I said, that example of buying a house, you can't just say, I want this house in the middle of the road on Johnson Street. You have to say what address, 123 Johnson Street, and that has to be recorded at the courthouse, and it has to have, meets and boundaries around that address so you know what you purchased. And so the same thing is true with your idea. You have to document it, and it pays to have a professional. You don't want to say, I don't want to pay $5,000 or $10,000 for this. I'd rather do it myself. And you lose out on $10 million because you didn't want to go through the proper process and didn't get the right assistance. I encourage innovators and inventors to, if that's not your expertise, bring those types of people onto your team to advise you and help you through the process. And while there's a cost to that, you have to look at the cost-benefit analysis of what you're trying to do. If that's what you want to do, if you just want to give your patent away and just advance technology, do a Kickstarter and put your video out there, and that is a public disclosure and contribution. But if you have a desire for business, you have to treat it as such. And that's something I encourage inventors to do. I think a lot of times inventors are very protective of the idea, and now that the PTO is no longer first to invent, if you don't take your idea to patent application immediately, you are taking the chance of missing out on opportunity.
Yeah, and it sort of makes you wonder how many people really lost out on being penny wise and pound foolish. Well, thank you for taking your time with us, Tariq. I normally ask at the end of the interview what advice would you give an inventor, but you've been given advice this whole time. So let me ask, who would you recommend that we at the Invention Stories podcast interview, or who should inventors listen to?
I'm biased. I think you should interview some of us at Founders just for the different perspectives on inventions and the experience. Probably Yuri Eliezer. I think he's excellent. choice. But I think in the invention space, if I will broaden it out a little bit, I think you're going to look at different approaches to what inventors are taking. I think, like here we have the head of the Inventors Network of the Capital Area, Inca, Chris Paul. He's the president. His experience in that inventors society, his proximity to the patent office, he has a wealth of experience that would be not just experience in terms of, what inventors are going through, but what's worked and what hasn't worked. Because I think everybody thinks they have the best idea and they know the best way to do it. Like, I'll give you an example, also talk to the different forces. Like I say, Stephen Key and Invent Right, they're a big player out here. I would say also a place like Inventors Systems out of North Carolina. They do big Kickstarter campaigns for inventors. Find out what's working. Talk to these people and see what their strategies are, but also see what's working. Roy Morjan at Inventors Systems, he was one of the keynotes at the Inca meeting. And while that's attractive, one of the things that happens with Kickstarters is, inventors they're not properly doing proper market analysis. They're not raising enough money to deliver on their invention. But they've disclosed their invention, so they're also missing out on a patent. So you have to know what's happening and what's working and what doesn't work. It doesn't mean Kickstarter doesn't work. It doesn't mean social media fundraising doesn't work either, crowdfunding. But it means you need to find out what didn't work so you can learn. And also, there's can't think of his name. Successful inventors. There's a guy who did this bunch of balloons patent. He had a big win in a lawsuit because somebody tried to knock off his product. He just won, but someone like that, I can't think of his name right now, but Bunch of Balloons is covered in IP Watchdog not so long ago. But someone like that, or there's another invention that I was looking at, talking to one of the founders a while ago. Flight Time. It's like a fold up pedal that you put under your desk, and while you're sitting at your desk, you can pedal. Look at inventors that have had success and try to learn the models they use for that success. Because, a patent application may not be for everybody, but if you want to go through the patent application, it's not a bad idea to have a patent attorney or patent agent on. We're process experts for a reason, and subject matter experts for a reason to help you through the process. We're not here to hinder or hurt. I can't speak for everyone, but I think that's in general, that's not the function of a patent attorney or patent agent. So I hope I answered that question. I know I gave you some different points of view, but I think seeing the whole pie or seeing the whole, perspective is what will help inventors make better decisions.
Some more great advice. And I would like to complete this interview by asking you, what do you think is a good determination for deciding whether to patent or not patent an idea? Because, I know somebody specifically who's spent thousands of dollars, and it's been like over 5 years. And people spend a lot of time and money on them when they could just bypass it and use a first-to-market strategy.
So it's not binding. I hold this answer as a binding. I don't want any inventor like, Tariq said this, and so. But can't you tell I've been learning well from my fellow colleagues and founders, attorneys? Like, you can't say something like that. But I think the major thing that I would say is that's not a patent problem. That's a procrastination problem. And so I think you have to go from thought to action, especially after the AIA. You have to go from thought to action. If you wake up in the middle of the night, wake up, write it down. Record yourself on your phone, your smartphone by your bed, draw it out, diagram it, send it to me, send it to a patent attorney. Say, let's do a provisional. Let's get this in when I'm going to do the provisional, but I also want to do due diligence. So let's do a patent search, a patentability report. Is this something that's already out there? You owe yourself that much, but you have to take action. If you don't take action, you wait 5, 6 years to do that. And what happens in the process is it's passed you by. Like the technology can pass you by. And when you start talking to people, you're really bordering on these disclosure issues where you're just letting it out and you're no longer eligible for even a patent because you've disclosed it to the public already. Walking around talking to everybody about it, mentioning it at meetings, mentioning it at public forums, writing about it on the web, but you're not acting on it. And so there are time periods where that's going to hurt you. So you have to go from thought to action. Don't think that you have the best thing, the best idea out there. If you don't act on it, it doesn't have any value. So you have to take action. So that's what I would tell someone, take action. And it's not, whether you take action with me, someone else, you need to take action or do it yourself. You have to take action.
Good stuff. Well said. Well, that's all I've got for you, Tariq, and I'd like to thank you for taking your time. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I would say, tell people where they can contact me. At Patent Insider is my Twitter handle. At PATENTINSIDER. That's my Twitter handle. You can find me at founderslegal.com. That's FOUNDERSLEGAL.com. And you can email me, Tariq, TARIQ, at founderslegal.com. And we have a blog on our website as well. We are resources for information for inventors. And again, you can schedule a free consultation with me. My calendar link is Calendly, CALENDLY.com. That's CALENDLY.com/patent insider. And you can schedule something with me anytime, and I will definitely follow up with you. You can find me on LinkedIn, Tariq Najee-ullah, or look up Founders Legal on LinkedIn. But, here basically as a resource, if you have any questions, reach out to me.